I think there are places where you can find God.
Traveling to these areas that will show on the screen really makes you stop and think, wow. If you had any doubt as to the existence of a creator and then you see these places, it's got to be spiritually uplifting for you to go there.
First time you ever see Northern Lights with your naked eye, you will just be like in awe. Like you'll just think to yourself like, wow, like, this is actually real. Yeah, there's a whole science behind it, but just to see that beauty is just crazy. And then you kind of like realize, I worship a God that has created.
So continuing our theme of speaking to remarkable individuals who have achieved, done and seen remarkable things, I have with me today a very, very good friend of mine, Ayaz Ali, who is a photographer. He works within marketing consultancy. He has traveled the world to some of the most remote places, some of the most dangerous places, and some of the most beautiful places, which hopefully today we'll be able to showcase for you. Ayaz, thank you so much for making the time to come.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
I know you've had a busy year.
Yeah.
And so making some time to come in is, I'm grateful.
I'm actually glad to see this all come together as well.
I know, right? Because we spoke about this.
Definitely, it's been something of your, a project of yours.
Yeah.
So it's good to see.
Ayaz was actually one of the first people, actually the first person I spoke to about this project, about building a podcast, and we sort of sat down, planned out cameras and lenses and sets and all this stuff. So it's
good to see it all in flesh now.
It's finally come together.
No, alhamdulillah. I've been following as well the journey. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it
as well.
Let's get into it. What do you so for those watching at home who haven't come across you before, what do you do? What's the day to day?
So I work as a photographer, a travel and a landscape photographer. And I also work as a marketing consultant.
Okay.
I used to do photography full time up until COVID. And then after COVID, it's been sort of pivoting with the marketing. COVID kind of just made wiped out a lot of the photography industry. So a lot of people just kind of pivoted into different industries just to kind of keep going. And for me, the marketing was really doing well. So I didn't want to change that. It's now doing both together. Alhamdulillah, it's good.
And going back to the very beginning of the journey, how did you find your way into photography? Was it a passion from a young age? How did you kind of stumble across it?
I am actually not a photographer through kind of profession in the sense of learning.
Okay.
I actually studied pharmaceuticals at university. And it was only like when I moved to London in 2015, I kind of decided to take a sort of a jump into the photography and go full time with it.
So you just bought a camera and
pictures? I mean, I had a camera, but it was just when I moved here, I just thought I moved for a job. I worked the job for like 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and I was like, you know what, this is not for me.
Okay.
And I quit my job on a Friday, and I took a flight out on Sunday to go backpacking across Iran for a month. Wow. And since then I've not looked back.
So you took your camera, you just started shooting around Iran?
I went around a road trip with a few friends to Iran. We went backpacking, obviously visited the holy sites, and then we went to some of the historical sites in Shiraz and Kashan and these places, Isfahan. And since then it's just been a journey.
See, this idea of backpacking and journey is going to be quite recurring, right?
It's
because
quite recurring.
You have this tendency to just grab a bag and then go and live on a boat for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I've done a lot of different trips. One of my first trips in terms of the travel and the landscape was out to a remote island called St Kilda.
Okay. Whereabouts is that in the world?
Yeah, so I was just gonna, it's literally in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. Not many people know about it. I didn't know about this. I came across this by chance. A photographer I used to follow was putting together a trip to go out here, and he said it's an archipelago. This place has been remote. There is no sort of human life on there now.
Okay.
In 1930s, the last of the people who used to live there, they were migrated to Scotland. That was my first sort of travel and landscape trip, and I was fascinated by it.
I've seen your Instagram and I've seen some of the footage of the places you've been to. I'm sure you guys watching at home, when you see what we have to show you, it's breathtaking, some of it, right?
Yeah, this was my first sort of exposure to landscape photography, and to see a part of the world so disconnected, so remote. I mean, just to get to it is a venture in itself. You're in the Atlantic, which is not really the most easiest journey, and or accessible. I've been on this island a few times now, but every time I go, it's just a reminder of how difficult it is to get there. And that's part of the process, like you have to go through difficult journeys, and once you get there, you appreciate the place even more. You realize why this is disconnected and things like that. And I was really blown over. I stayed there for a week, with a group of photographers.
Doing say if there's no inhabitants or kind of native inhabitants there anymore, is there still infrastructure, electricity, water?
So there is National Trust of Scotland controls this island now, and it's been maintained in the sense of tourists go there and stuff. It is actually getting more popular. So just to give you throw a random fact out there. When I went to the island, which was in 2017, was my first trip there, I probably was maybe in a group of less than 500 people that have visited that island.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine from that.
Full stop, like since
the migration of the people.
Yeah.
So we're talking 1930. The whole history of this island is fascinating.
Sure.
This island became known by an accident when a ship ventured into the bay in a storm, and they realized there's inhabitants here.
Okay.
And that's how people started to trade with this island. They would trade on things like, they would trade with like things like oil and stuff, because they have a particular wildlife species, the birds, and these birds, when they're attacked, they would spit out oil, because they used to have oil, a sort of sac in their throat, and the inhabitants would use that to lit the fires.
Okay.
So it's like you can think like innovatively like how these guys survive, or they would use the peat of peat is effectively the what you would call manure, or dung. They would use that to lit the fires, right? Because there's no wood there. It's so they would do things like that, and then you kind of start to realize that the people who lived here actually had their own way of developing and growing. There's a lot of different things there. There on the island, there is a place, and this was one of the pictures, we'll share as well with the audiences, what is called the Lover's Stone. Okay. So if you were an inhabitant of that island, you would walk up this stone and declare your love to the person you wanted to marry. Okay. And this stone, this position of this place, this stone, is such that it's actually exposed to the wind and the elements. Okay. And if you survive standing on one foot, that's a sign of your love. That's a sign of your love.
And this reminds me of the ancient practices where, if you had a baby was born and they wanted to test if the baby was born of legitimate birth or whatever, they'd roll it down a mountain, or they would present a snake to it, or
it's like you never in your head you're kind of thinking like, well, look, I've heard of like the Spartans, for example, the way they would look at their babies, or give them survival or not, if they were like born differently and stuff. And then you see this, like actually seeing this historical thing in front of you, which is not, it is dissimilar, but in the sense of the same idea. You just think to yourself, wow, this is crazy.
Whenever you tell me about these stories, and I'm sure this will, crop up again and again as we speak, we are encouraged to travel, right? And that's to broaden our knowledge base, broaden our minds to, the way people live, the different lifestyles, the different cultures, the different environments, but more so just to ponder on the world and kind of the creation of God. You have kind of people that travel to well-known cities and built up areas, which is also useful. Yeah. But traveling to these areas that we'll show on a screen really makes you stop and think, wow, if you had any doubt as to the existence of a creator, and then you see these places, it's got to be spiritually uplifting for you to go there and see how other people live, or other civilizations grew and evolved over time.
This was something that I used to think about a lot before sort of transitioning into sort of doing landscape and travel photography. Yeah. What is this the life we live? And this is a question a lot of us kind of, especially when you're like in your 20s, kind of have that internal battle about like, is this the life we live? Is this it? Like, is this going to be where my life is structured? Whether it's my work, my limited to this like 9-to-5 routine, whatever we want to call it, whether it's our commute and stuff. And obviously, like when I moved to London, that was part of my thinking as well, because I was like, well, I'm commuting to work. It's pretty much 9-to-5. It's like, is this going to be me for the next 60, 70 years of, my career? And I was like, no, I don't want this. I really don't want this. In parallel to that, I'll give you another scenario. As Muslims, and unpopular opinion, but I think we got to address this at some point. It's not for us, maybe for our kids. We have limited religion to the mosque, right? unless we can accept that what we have done and this world that exists, we don't show, like you said, the creator, then it's a very big disconnect. To me, it's a very big disconnect. There are so many things I've seen, I would say in my 10 years journey, I just marvel and I'm like, subhanAllah, like this is, the God's creation is so vast and so beautiful and so different. Like you cannot even sort of comprehend certain things. I mean, we see these pictures of the Northern Lights. And I tell you, the first time you ever see Northern Lights with your naked eye, you will just be like in awe. Like you'll just think to yourself like, wow. Like, this is actually real.
Yeah.
This isn't, there's a whole science behind it.
Yeah.
But just to see that beauty, that Kamal is just crazy.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like realize, well, like, I worship a God that has created this. And that's, when
Powerful.
you deep that fact, it's big, right? Another example I can give you is when I go to the mountains, I always stare at the sky, the night sky. If you find yourself in the mountains, take the time, even for 10 minutes, just stare at the sky. We don't see the sky here. We live in cities, light pollution, all of this, the noise and everything. Just that, again, it's contemplation.
Yeah.
But the idea of just seeing that beauty, it actually creates something in ourselves. It makes our brain kind of work. It's a growth, it's a healing process, which does. So for me, these was the two things. One was I felt very, I wouldn't say constricted, but I felt we were limiting ourselves when it came to our religion. I was like, we're not venturing. There is beauty out there. There is, like, Quran talks about traveling for various reasons. One of them is to know the societies, the people. One of them is to also see why people went wrong. We have, like, for example, Imam Ali, when he says to his son in his will that study history so you understand why people did what they did. It's like, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the understanding of, understand there is a group of people you may not have seen, a society of people, and you need to kind of understand why they lived the way.
Where they fell down, where they fell, where they fell.
Whether it's historical, whether it's today. You're gonna see these things and you realize, you know what? The world is very different.
Yeah. See, I think I've always had this thought that we, whichever religion you prescribe to, whichever culture you come from, the scripture or the narrations or the history that we base a lot of our practices on were from a time, just a physical space that looked very different to what our physical space looks like. We live in a concrete monstrosity where we don't get to breathe fresh air. We don't get to look up and, see the stars. There's many references, Islamically, but I'm sure in other religions as well, about looking up, reflecting, pondering, and kind of seeing with your eyes to allow your heart to see the miracles and the marvels of God.
Yeah, definitely.
And we live in a time now where the food we eat is heavily processed. What we see is heavily processed. What we breathe is heavily processed. Everything around us is very much curated by man.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised that the world is devoid in many places of God or God consciousness, because people aren't getting to see the world in its natural beauty, in its natural state. And again, we'll share some of the clips. I'm sure you guys at home will look at these and think, wow, I didn't know something like that existed in the world, let alone how beautiful it is.
That's literally like, so what you're saying is true, but I would change that slightly and say this. I think there are places where you can find God, whether it's sort of near an ocean or in the mountains, or, even I'll give you a sort of on the example of horses you're saying. 2 years ago, I went to Kyrgyzstan. I know this is not one of the countries you wanted to talk about, but let's talk about it because since the reference kind of makes sense here.
For people watching home, whereabouts is Kyrgyzstan?
Kyrgyzstan is in Central Asia.
Okay.
It's neighboring Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. So part of was part of the Soviet era Union at the time. Now it's kind of like, since independence, these countries have become their own entities. So Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. So what's kind of interesting about this area? I went 2 years ago. I had heard of this place, and I was literally like, I want to go.
Just randomly,
I was like, I want to go. I looked into it. I'd actually seen some videos and stuff, But I had no clue, as in I had no guide there. I had a friend who lived in Uzbek. He wanted to visit. So we made a plan. We just decided to go. We got there and I remember we get out from the airport. We find a place that we want to go to. We had a list of places. So we just kind of like put it into sat nav. We're driving around. And there's a place we wanted to go to, which was called Songkul Lake. Songkul Lake is, I mean, if you ever find yourself in Kyrgyzstan, make a point to visit this. It is a very busy place in summer. So this is the other thing I kind of do is when I travel, I pick seasons which are not busy.
I realize that.
Yeah.
They tend to be quite cold.
Yeah, it's either cold or, yeah. So I go early spring or I'll go late summer because I also think when you want to explore and connect with a place, you need to do its due justice. A lot of the time when you mention about holidays that people do, what is a holiday? Let's kind of even break that down just to kind of take a break here and we'll break that down and come back to this story. Is that a lot of people take a holiday to break their routine. Yeah. It's a pause. It's
like
not
an escape.
It's an escape. It's a recharge, right? But this recharge is also very driven with activities.
Sure.
Right? If you ask, I would say an average group of people, look, what is the thing you do when you go on a holiday? They will list you a number of activities or things.
Scuba, skydiving.
Something. They will always do an activity.
Yeah.
But tell them, okay, today, just for a day on your trip, I just want you to sit on the beach, do nothing. You know the amount of people that will be like, no, can't do that.
Yeah.
Because in the modern time, we are conditioned that way. We're conditioned to do something, right? We never pause. Now, this is why COVID was such a big factor to all of us. The thing is, when you make a conscious decision to go to a place, you want to maximize it in the sense of what it can do for you, right? So if I'm going to a place like Kyrgyzstan, which is sort of very scenic, a lot of mountains. Now, this was the thing I didn't know until I went there. Over 75% of the population still lives as nomads.
Okay.
Like, that's a crazy number.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, that can't be true.
What does that mean then for them, like in terms of a nomadic lifestyle in 2025?
They are like, this is our lifestyle. We embrace it wholeheartedly. We are people who will, in the summer, go up to the mountains, take our flock and live in the mountains. In the winter, we'll come down and live in the valleys. This is who we are.
Okay.
We'll build our yurts and we'll live in our yurts in the summer in the mountains. In the winter, we'll come and stay in the villages. Even now, they do this.
Okay.
Does that mean they are disconnected in terms of internet and stuff? Yeah, I mean, if you're in the mountains in a remote place, you're disconnected. But they use phones. They have modern things, if you want to call it, like, cars, this and that. That's all there.
Sure.
But what is important is the lifestyle. Yep. See? So I'll give you an example. So we ended up going to Songkul. So we're to continue with that story. So we had traveled the whole day. This is late at night. We get to the base of the mountain where we have to go up the mountain pass, and this lake is on the mountain. This lake is nearly 4,000 meters high into the mountains, right? And it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. So this is literally how it looks when you get above the mountain, right? Now you can imagine just looking at this, like getting there is a mission in itself, right? And doing this in the night.
Okay.
And just to kind of caveat this also with, my guide my friend and guide from Uzbek, he didn't have the right tires.
Okay.
And we're getting up a mountain pass at the late winter, so the snow is melting.
Are there established roads and stuff?
There's trail. Yeah, there's a trail. But the crazy thing is, because at the altitude, it gets really cold.
Okay.
Right. But I was like, I'm down for it. Let's go. Let's see. And we got up there late. We got up there at midnight. It took us a good hour and a half to navigate the mountain pass and everything. But honestly, it was, I was kind of really taken back by the hospitality of these people. So we turned up at, midnight. They were waiting for us. They didn't, obviously at that time, Starlink wasn't that sort of popular. So there was nothing like internet connection because of being in the mountains. But we had said to them, we're coming today. So
they waited.
They waited. And not just waited, like when we met them and stuff, they're like, no, we have food for you guys. We have dinner and stuff. And they actually, what I found was like, they actually hadn't eaten themselves. So they're waiting for us.
That's just like old school hospitality,
Yeah,
right? Like our
exactly.
grandparents would say, if you're having guests over or someone's coming, you don't eat until they arrive.
Yeah.
And
So that's like, I mean, but the timing is midnight. And anyway, we sort of have the dinner and stuff. And the next morning we woke up to like a snowstorm. It was like white out. You know, we had like a blanket of snow come in. And this brother, he was like, his name was Ul Beg. He was like building these yurts because they what they do in the start of the summer, they establish their camp in the mountains.
yeah,
So he was building these yurts in the middle of the snowstorm. Like it wasn't heavy, but it was enough like me and you wouldn't go out kind of thing, right? And I realized something. I was like, you know what? They're built different.
they're built different.
They're built different. And for me, it's not just built different. It's like I even asked him, like, okay, look, there's not much to do here, right? Like there's no guest right now. Obviously, you're getting ready for the busy season, which is going to be a summer.
So do they have a tourist season there?
Yeah, so the summer is their tourist season.
Fine.
So a lot of people actually visit the lake in the summer because it's a very beautiful lake, you know, and especially in the summer, the way the sun sets on that side of the lake, it's stunning. And then the location is actually very nice as well. So all of that, you know, makes it a very sort of nice spot to spend your evenings, as to speak. So a lot of people come there. But I was like, we're the start of the summer. We were the only guests. You can take it easy, but their work ethic was like, no, I need to get this done. I need to, regardless of what the weather is like.
Doesn't matter who's coming. Doesn't matter when. The service is going to be.
Yeah, it's a mindset, right? And I was like, you know what, this is interesting. You see this mindset, and you realize actually these people, they are so much about their lifestyle. They would never give that up. I saw this in China as well. I went to China a couple of times pre-COVID. Obviously, you know, people don't know. China's like quite controversial when it comes to COVID, but yeah, like went to China before COVID. And again, the mindset, the lifestyle. Now, this is what travel does. When you see these things, couple that with the nature itself, is a very much a healing process and a growth journey. See, what COVID did is made a lot of people face themselves. And I think we have to kind of accept that it's not comfortable to do.
No.
Right? Sitting in silence, sitting in less noise, especially if you live in London, which is such a busy, any metropolitan city for that matter, is so busy. The moment it's like silence, you're like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
It's very difficult, you know? And that's when the work begins though, right? That's when you have to kind of look inside and like kind of develop what is going on, what's wrong, where are my pain points, where are my blind spots, all of these things. There's a journey of growth that you can go on. And I would say COVID did that to a lot of people. And it's not just even that, it also made us realize that, look, we aren't these sort of species which are built as machines.
Yeah.
When they talk about productivity, the problem with productivity is that you are a machine. We aren't built as machines, and COVID reinforced that. That's like the positive part. Now, when it reinforced that, you have a choice. You can go through that journey of growth and sitting with the silence, sitting with the different things within you and start to go on a healing journey.
Yep.
Or you run away from it. You know, it's something.
One of the two.
Yeah, you got to do. That's literally what has happened with travel industry. When I look across the travel industry now, I'm seeing sort of like a split happening where people are taking this sort of route, you can say, to go on trips which actually help them. In terms of mindful way, wellness, spiritual, the nature, like heavy on nature, heavy in like sort of the sort of the rugged landscape, just to kind of get one with nature, you can say, because they realize that we live in a concrete jungle. The concrete jungle is very disconnected. Yeah, like
it's quite a powerful feeling, right? When you do, I mean, even if you look at it from a local perspective, we had a guest on the show who spoke about going for a walk during COVID every day for an hour or 2 or 3. And it kind of just, he said, from somebody who's never walked before, never really enjoyed or felt nature, he started walking and it just changed something inside him. And then when you feel something powerful change inside you, the natural reaction is, okay, well, I want more of this.
That's it, right?
And maybe this is what I've been missing. And I think
exactly. And also when we slow down, that's when our brain changes. You know, one of the things, I mean, I come from, like I said, pharmaceuticals. I study neurosciences. One of the things which was highlighted during COVID, and there was studies on this, is called lockdown dreams.
Okay.
Right? This concept of lockdown dreams. A lot of people experience this. What that was is effectively we live such a busy lifestyle that when COVID made us slow down, like in every way, our brain couldn't comprehend for a while. Look, what the hell is
What's
this?
happened here?
What's
Yeah,
happened here?
Yeah.
And what would happen is whatever people were doing sort of day to day started coming in their dreams.
Okay.
Yeah. So I for myself, the lockdown dreams were a lot about travel. A lot of the experiences I had was just, you know, the places I'd been to, things like that, because my brain was so used to that. So a lot of people were experiencing things like this because these are sort of, I would say, the hidden effects of COVID that's not talked about.
Sure.
But we have to normalize this because we have to talk about that. COVID was difficult. You know, let's not brush that under the carpet. It has changed humans as a species because of a pandemic will always does. I mean, look at historically, every pandemic has done that. Spanish flu, polio, whatever. It
has a big impact on society and how it functions.
So ultimately this did that. And now couple this with the current climate as well, it's sort of a very tandem effect, right? So this is why it's important for us humans to then be realized, look, what do we need? And this is where mindfulness, wellness, these things come in. And this is why also like it matters when you travel with the right intention, mindfulness. And also I would add this, like, you know, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be thinking, well, you're a traveler, you have this privilege. Yeah, it is a privilege. I'm not going to deny that I am privileged to travel. I mean, the fact that, you know, me and you have passport is a privilege in itself.
Yes,
like, let's be honest about that, right?
Yeah.
And then secondary to that is the color of our passports, right? Yeah. So definitely, look, travel is a privilege. Yeah. But at the same time,
it is accessible though.
It is
accessible. It's all about priorities, right? And a common theme and the kind of things that we want to be talking about and discussing here are those conversations about priority. I have X amount of time, X amount of money, X amount of energy. How best can I utilize my time, my money, and my energy to serve me, to serve my family, to serve my wellness, to serve my spirituality, to serve my God consciousness? And so if you want to, and you make an intention to travel for the sake of, like you said, that kind of spiritual awakening, it can be done, and it can be done on a budget. It's not necessarily,
no, it doesn't have,
it's not going to cost you thousands and thousands of pounds to go to these places.
There are places still in the world, I would say, which will give you the same experience of healing, growth, wellness, all these elements, and they're very affordable, they're very accessible. But it's about choices, about priorities. It's also, you have to take that journey. Like, see, in my case, I could have easily, post-COVID, continued the commercial work. I mean, it was something I had done for a while. It was,
and I was going to mention this to you before as well, but that's work, that's paid work, right? Yeah. And you've chosen to leave paid work and go solo, pretty much. And you said mention some sponsorship here and there, but generally speaking, you fund your own trips.
Yes.
Not only are you not making money from the trip, but it's actually costing you to go out there, and then you come back with this great footage and great experience, but unless somebody comes and says, look, I'm going to purchase this or use it for whatever, it's actually the opposite, right? It's costing you to go. It's not you've turned your back on the commercial, financial benefit side of the photography
so industry. Let me flip this, right? Why are we so eager to monetize everything?
There you go. That's a whole new topic itself.
But
it's a good question.
But also, at the bare minimum, what I've done is a memory. These are my memories, right? Tomorrow, like, this footage is even if I don't publish a book, even I don't get someone who purchases, these will become my memories.
We spoke about it, but legacy as well, right? Legacy, it becomes a memory, but it's something that you've left behind.
And if my intention is right, then, you know, inshallah, it will last. I mean, you know, I was thinking about this on the way here. I was like, who is the most celebrated Muslim traveler that we talk about? Ibn Battuta. Right? Yet in 2025, we still talk about his travel log. Why? Because sincerity, the reason he traveled, the reason when he put together those words and those observations, they still hit people today, right?
I'm
Why?
not going to pretend to know who that is, so you're going to have to explain to me. a little bit.
Ibn Battuta is like very well known. It's like one of the famous, I would say, Muslim travelers, and he traveled quite extensively, like the Muslim world and beyond. And he wrote about these places. His travelogue today is still read because it's a memory of that time.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, by the way. Keep in mind, the world is changing.
Of course.
That's the memory from his time of 13th century or so. We're reading this today, so
Yeah.
we get a visual. Tomorrow, someone might pick up my sort of stories and be like, okay, what the world was in 2025.
Yep.
So it's a memory at the base level,
Yep.
right? You can
Yep.
say
Yep.
that. Anything beyond that is extra.
Sure.
And this is what I'm saying. It's like we live in this world where we just want to monetize something.
everything.
Let's monetize it. Let's monetize it. Let's gamify it, right? As we say. And you know what? Again, an unpopular opinion, but we just give in to the capitalist idea. That's literally what capitalism is. It's just somehow to make money out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the world is not that way. Don't get me wrong.
They for just to balance that argument, there is a certain amount of money that you need to be able to live a life, and there is a certain amount of money you need to be able to enable certain things to happen, right? Whether it's housing, food at the very base level, education for your children, but you kind of get to a point where if you continually chase money or you're continually thinking about money, where's the end?
Okay.
Where's the end point? When do you reach the end point?
But
When do you say that? Because they say, for example, right, there is an amount of money, and I think in the UK or the West is like £70,000 a year. I don't know where they get that number from, but anything above that doesn't bring you any happiness or contentment, but you need up to that amount to be able to get by and survive and live. But so, I definitely think that there's a place for people to, what we're not saying is give up everything.
No, I'm not.
And
I mean,
go on your travels. However, I totally agree. We don't tend to do anything unless there's a financial reward or some sort of ego reward or something at the end of it.
We also got to find, and this is something that, again, we've lost, and I say this a lot, contentment is like a lost treasure now. And that's like a big thing, because for me, I feel, and this is myself included, like I used to live like that. I know I used to live a lifestyle where, especially when I first started the travel business, you can say, obviously it was a business pre-COVID. When I moved to London, the financial worry was a big thing.
Of course.
You're in a new city.
You got to pay your rent.
Pay your rent.
London's not cheap, right? Yeah, of course.
All of these things. And I know over the years, I would always kind of go back to, am I content? No, I'm not. Why am I not content? What's the worry?
So here's a question for you then. Here's a statement that I'll put out there. If you spend some time in solitude with nature, with that fuel for your soul, with that growth, I would argue that you are putting yourself in a better position when you return from that trip, or as a result of your learning, to actually go and earn more money if you wanted to, because you're in a better place, right? You're more balanced. You have more focus. You've seen things and you spot opportunities. You've seen the world. You kind of come back more grateful for what you have. Filling your own cup and coming back with a full cup, and then going at the world to make money and build businesses, whatever, will actually put you in a better position.
Because when you have that, the greatest thing you'll come back with is clarity, and clarity matters, because clarity will,
especially in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, also clarity is effectively going to be your direction where you go. Does God matter to me? Does spirituality matter to me? Or is it that money matters to me? It can be that money can matter, but that's you. You got to own it. You have to be like the person to say, you know what? Yeah. I have a space for this and this, but I also have a space for this.
Yeah.
That's fine. But that's what you got to do. Have that clarity.
You mentioned healing. What was that healing journey like for you? What did you experience out there that, healed you?
For me, like I had been through, COVID was obviously, as we discussed, was on a very universal level, impacted everyone. For me personally, after COVID, sort of tail end of 21, I had my own things going on. I actually moved to a new place just outside London. So it was a new environment, new home, getting settled into all of that. Plus, I transitioned in sort of my Work was transitioning. So all of these things.
So there's a lot going on, a lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainties. I think that's the key. In life, there will always be uncertainties. And I think as human beings, we have to embrace that, because that's literally part of our faith. Faith is the unseen. So if we have to kind of come to terms with, look, uncertainty will exist in our life, this is where faith matters. And for me, the healing journey was that in many ways. It was like understanding and letting go of what had happened, how to come to peace with a lot of things, how to kind of grow in the sense of realizing what my road looks like, where am I going next, what am I doing, how do I change myself now that I'm coming out of this. I have to accept that this is done. This is like a chapter. Okay, this is a new chapter now going forward. All of those. So
where do I need to be able to be best placed in this new chapter?
Remember, we know this from hadith as well. When the Prophet says, if 2 days are the same, you haven't grown, right? So we have to, that conscious effort has to be there. Accountability has to be there, right? Even if it's just iota, it's still better than nothing, right?
Yeah, we can be very hard on ourselves.
That's it.
And we look at where we are in time to, and it's always the negatives and how I can grow, but we don't often take time to think, okay, how much have I grown?
Yeah. And
where was I?
Exactly.
Compared to where I am now, and give yourself a bit of credit sometimes, right?
And why do we do that as well? Is gratification. We live in a culture of instant gratification, right? We need to break that.
And this is slightly off topic, but I'll touch on it. Social media, you have the ability to share your experiences, right? You can share visuals, you can share video, you can share text, people post online. We'll get into this in a separate episode maybe, but there is a reason why everyone makes a post online. But what always struck me is there are people posting online that have seen nowhere near as much as what you've seen. And you could be so much more active on social media. You could really be like hammering this home and being like, look at me, I went here and I went here and I did this and I did this. And yes, you do post and it's great for someone like me to look at, because it's like, wow, I've not seen this part of the world before. But it very much seems like this journey for you was for you. You didn't do it as much for the visuals. You didn't do it as much for, the content. You did it because you needed to do it and you felt the benefit of it. And I mean, even now, you kind of share bits, but it still seems like a very internal growth journey for you. A lot of people do a lot of things for the gram.
Yeah. Now,
and if you're going to do something for the gram, this is what I would do for the gram.
So funny enough, there is a struggle behind that. There's been a big struggle for me. I had opportunities. I won't deny this. I had opportunities to take on and be sort of the influencer lifestyle if I wanted.
The sort of places that you've been to, if you were to document with a GoPro of you trekking through here, like, I have no doubt, and I'm not trying to
No, so there's no regrets. There's no regret. And the reason there's no regret is part of my journey is also coming to an acceptance what I don't want. When people say to me, like, did you ever think, I've had this question of quite a few times, like, did you ever think you would go on these journeys before, like 10 years ago when you started? Did you ever think about this? And I said, no, I never. I actually never. Like today, I'm just like, I've climbed mountains or been on like as high as like just on the shy of 5,000 meters altitude. If you asked me 10 years ago, would you ever get that high? No, I would have never. I made a thing to myself was this, that, listen, whatever happens, we're not getting FOMO. I am not living in that culture. I am not picking places because I am missing out. I'm not.
Just as, people living in the West, but men specifically, we're so used to comfort. And there's so much, you see these motivational quotes and stuff on Instagram about putting yourself in a uncomfortable situation, training that part of the mind and the brain and the subconscious, so that once you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and overcome it, it's like a muscle, right? It just makes you more resistant to stress. It makes you more resistant to the day-to-day discomfort that you may feel here. And I think an important takeaway from this, from the whole episode and what we've discussed with regards to kind of travel and seeing different places is, if you are in a position or you're having thoughts or you have feelings of unsettling feelings or, discomfort or something's not quite right, you really have to try and find things to do to correct that,
Definitely.
to change that.
Definitely.
It's not just going to change by itself. And so one of those things that you can do is challenge yourself, is put yourself in situations that you would normally not be comfortable in.
Yeah.
And set yourself a personal challenge, even if it's getting a tent and camping in the garden for a night. I'm not saying you have to go up, to K2 or whatever, but the more you do that, the more you realize how resilient you are.
Yeah.
The more trust you have in yourself and your ability to survive.
That's self-confidence.
Right? And that will translate into, again, as we mentioned, whether it's money, whether it's business, whether it's family, it will, we're in this comfort, society and Tate calls it the matrix, but whatever you want to call it is designed to keep us in this comfortable, limited, self-doubting space.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the point, right? Because we're living in a space, we're living in a society, even you can argue, that's where comfort and convenience, I would say convenience more so, is valued. Now, there is a value to convenience, let's not, because obviously as humans, we see efficiency in convenience as well, right? But what's important is what I said earlier, is not getting to that stage where it becomes gratification. And I would say, not just that point. The other thing I would say also is this, that people do not have the means in many ways. So for me, I think back to a lot of this is because I went through a program. I used to play hockey, field hockey, and part of that was training with elite athletes. These guys were representing Scotland, GB, things like that. And when you train with them, it's like, wow,
the eye opener.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. And I would argue, as Muslims, maybe now it's different, but my generation, at least, I would say, didn't have this, where we were comfortable getting into elite sports programs and things like that, in order to understand the mental well-being that it brought with it. When you get into a program like that, it takes you beyond the wall. It breaks that barrier. It's kind of making you like you've kind of exhausted yourself, and then you build, right? So then things like even like taking the L, as to speak, becomes easier. You accept in a certain way, look, this is an L. I messed up. Okay, it's my responsibility.
I think I saw something really interesting. I think it was Roger Federer recently. And I think if you look at his career, despite his immense success, I think he said he won something like 51.2% of points that he played, which means he lost like 48%, pretty much half of the points that he played, he lost. And he said, if I'd have dwelled on every single point that I'd lost, it would have disabled me.
Yeah.
So it's a game of fine margins. But being able to take those L's.
Exactly.
And that resilience.
To get over that and then rebuild. You got to have that. And I see this, I see this in the next generation. I see this in like some of the youths I play football with regularly. I'm like, you're going to take losses. Like, except there will be a loss. You have to be comfortable in knowing that this loss is not going to define me. And I think that's where a lot of us haven't had that training and haven't had avenues of training.
It's almost a fear of failure as well, right? People haven't even taken the loss yet, but they're scared of taking the loss, so they won't start in the first place.
Obviously, if you live in a society that values productivity so dearly, values winning so dearly, values being being an individualist so dearly, where does that leave you? Losing or getting a failure is literally life ending in a way, right? Yeah. We need to change that. We need to kind of make it clear, look, you will have failures, you will have losses. Yeah. It's not even just about financial losses. You might have loss of your loved one tomorrow. You might have loss of a friend, loss of relationships, loss of friendships. Yeah. And not to dwell over it, because that will become a definition if you do that.
We need to reset things again. We've come so far. The world has changed so much. We mentioned our generation specifically is very different to the new generation. We played out so much, right? And even I think, like, compared to my father's generation, like, if I asked my dad to come with me on a trip to K2, I guarantee he'd get further. just because they're just built differently.
I mean,
they're just more rugged.
half the people that were with
to...
us who were porters, bro, they were like walking in trainers, and we were just like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
They didn't like wearing a shalwar kameez and trainers with a jacket and just venturing as if nothing.
Yeah,
and we were just like freezing and layers and layers.
I think it's important to see this because we kind of place limits on what we can do and what we should be doing.
But also, I would say it also comes down to methodology, right? For us, the means were different. Today, like you said, the next generation, their means are different. We need to, as parents, we need to kind of work out what is going to be my kids' methodologies in order for them to grow like this mentally. So,
having that forward thinking kind of mindset, because the world is going to be different in 10 years.
In 10 years, definitely.
Right?
I mean, it's already different now if you think about from 10 years, especially accelerated due to COVID and other factors.
Yeah.
It's going to be very different for us.
Those of you who have a very keen eye for detail will notice that we've changed the setup here just a little bit. And we have a new addition, which is hopefully going to stay there. So yourself and your wife have put together this fantastic book.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. So we touched on legacy earlier. We touched on you traveling, documenting, because you want to leave something behind.
Yeah.
So that in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, someone might look back at your work and say, oh, that was what society was like then. Or that was what the visual perception of a certain place or a certain location was then.
Yeah.
So what brought you onto this? What does it mean? Why did it happen?
I mean, I'll start with the first book because I think that's where sort of the foundations come from. So even when we did the first book, the idea behind the book was Arbaeen is the world's largest peaceful gathering. Over 20 million people go there. I mean, it's happening this year around this time. However, there wasn't, I mean, at that time, there wasn't that much coverage.
Okay.
In the Western media.
Just before we go on there, Arbaeen happens in Iraq.
In Iraq, every year is the 40th from Ashura, 40 days from Ashura, where pilgrims or Zawar walk from Najaf to Karbala in order to commemorate the 40th or the 40th day after Ashura in Karbala. So pilgrims come from all over the world to partake in this walk, as this pilgrimage, you can say, from one city to another. And it has grown year on year.
And it's 80 kilometers from 80 kilometers from Najaf to Karbala. And you'd typically set off from Najaf, walk for 3 days straight.
And you get to Karbala, to the shrine. It finishes there, to the shrine of Imam Hussein. And it's 3 days, and it happens year on year.
And there's around 40 million estimated people.
Yeah, I mean, over the course, people, if we count all the days, you're looking at a very high figure, well above 30 million. I went in 2017. That was my first time. I was like, okay, this is again, the experience of that whole thing was quite overwhelming. Just seeing how Arbaeen is. And I hadn't been, that was my first ziyarah to Iraq. So I hadn't been to Iraq before. And just seeing that, it just, I was like, wow, this is, this is amazing. But also, there's so many things to kind of emotionally relate to and understand and process. There is the Najaf part, then the walk itself, then once you come to the end of the Karbala, the Arbaeen day, all of this, and the atmosphere, the environment, all of that kind of.
So you decided to capture that.
So I documented. Obviously, I took photos. 2017 when I went, I took 2018 as well, and then we published this book in 2019, the Arbaeen one.
Why did you decide to publish this book specifically and not a book about your other travels to other places? So
I kind of sat down and I was like, okay, I want to do something. I want to have something out there which will talk about the work I do. And I did actually think about my travels. But I was like, people who know me probably know this as well. I have a lot of imposter syndrome. So I'm always kind of doubting and asking myself, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right way to go about things, especially on a project like this? And initially I did think about my travels. And then I was like, no, there's already a lot of people doing something similar. There's a lot of travel influencers, and a lot of people are documenting or talking about these places. Yeah. Unless I have something unique to share, I don't want to just reinvent the wheel. Fine. Right? And at the same time, I had gone on this journey of Arbaeen, and I was like, okay, this is something unique because people are not aware of it. And also when I used to share stories from my trip to Arbaeen, I would have a lot of people who used to follow me on Instagram ask me about it. And, my non-Muslim friends and others would be like very inquisitive, like, what is this?
Where are
What does
you?
it
What are you doing?
represent?
Yeah,
What is it about?
yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is very interesting because given the scale of this, you would expect it to be covered in the Western media,
Yeah.
but you don't see it.
You don't.
Right? And you start to only see it now after, I would say, 2019, there was a bit of like highlights and stuff. And then 2020, COVID changed it. But after that as well, there's been a few pieces in Nat Geo and other publications.
Just to add some context to this. So post Saddam Hussein in Iraq is when the Arbaeen walk really took off.
Yeah.
It's
changed
the
a lot.
walk from Najaf to Karbala.
Yeah.
Again, it was people did make the journey by foot during
the Saddam's time. But a lot of people were persecuted for it as well. But right now, again, like arguably, Arbaeen is like sort of commemorated, you can say, at its optimum because of the expression, the religious freedom,
and the freedom
and everything that comes with it, right? And then the idea was, so we create this documentation, the pictures. Then my wife wrote the text for it, which was the journey itself, describing from a lens of a pilgrim who was a Zahir who's gone there, how they experience the emotions of leaving or going to Najaf, leaving Najaf, walking Karbala, the 40th day, all of these different things. And our messaging was effectively to kind of emphasize, look, there is this event. This event has, while it's seen as a very big sort of a walk with hospitality and all of these, the way, the gestures of goodwill and feeding people and all of this, at the same time, there's a very sort of spiritual depth to it. Let's not discount that.
Just to add some context to that for those people that haven't experienced it or don't know what we're talking about, you can arrive in Najaf, which is a city in Iraq. You can set off from Najaf with nothing but a pair of slippers and walk 80 kilometers to Karbala across 3 days. You will be provided with every bit of food, water, shelter, medical care. If you to the point where if you have a buggy or a pram and you have children, they have buggy service stops along the way, where if your buggy's broken, they'll take it and give you a new one for free. You can leave without a penny, and you'll probably get to Karbala with more money than you actually got left Najaf with. Someone will pay for your food. When I went in 2016, there was less infrastructure on the side of the road. A local Iraqi resident would grab you by the hand
and take you
to their home.
Exactly.
They would sleep on the roof or outside,
and they would give you the rooms.
They would lay out fresh bedding. They would give you food. They would wake you up in the morning. They would give you breakfast, and they'd take you back to the road and say, "Off you go." And it sounds absurd to hear this, but that's just a tiny bit of the description.
It's just an insight into
the hospitality.
Hospitality.
There are people in Iraq who save all year
just so they can help.
Just so that for those 10 or 15 days of pilgrims traveling, that they can support them. They can give them food, water, hospitality. Now it's phenomenal. There are people that I only ever meet in Iraq from Canada, and I meet them for 2 hours once a year, and it's been happening for 10 years or 15 years.
It's like, on a level, it's a very social thing, but at the same time, it has a very sort of a spiritual significance.
And so this is the bit that I think is important. Is yes, we see, and it's billed as hospitality and an amazing display of giving and selflessness from people, but the spiritual side of it is what I think, having seen the Arbaeen book, is what you tried to capture
because
more of.
For us, it was like emphasizing that. And part of the reason was because even when I've seen the coverage, even like there's a couple of pieces I've seen that have come out, they don't mention spirituality. They don't want to talk about religion and spirituality. They frame it in such a way where these are disconnected from this event.
We went off season once, do you remember?
Yeah.
And we were discussing this with a mutual friend of ours who works for a charity, and whilst we were there, the emphasis was very much on Arbaeen,
Yeah.
Arbaeen, and rightly so.
Hmm.
But for some reason, Ashura in Iraq doesn't get any coverage.
Yeah.
Like Arbaeen now still in the Western media is a bit more, it's covered more, right?
Yeah.
With the core in mind, with the actual true essence of Ashura in mind. I couldn't see anything, or I couldn't find much out there.
Yeah,
that, that speaks about it from a visual lens, but also from a
So this is what the idea
lens.
was. It was to look at a wider scope of the Shia community and how this commemoration, because this commemoration has been alive for like more than nearly 1400 years, right? So there is a driver that's keeping this alive. There are people who, wherever they go in the world, they always hold on to this. There must be a reason. Generations, they have continued to commemorate this. So there is a reason. And then, sort of following that line, I was like thinking about a different project. And then it came to my mind, well, ultimately the source is Ashura. Like you have to go and talk about Ashura and build from that.
Yeah.
So this is where this book kind of like sort of transpired from. And then I went and did the documentation. See, people will experience it. They will experience it. But if you actually give them a context of like who these people were, who Imam Hussein is, what did he stand for? What is actually his mission when he comes to Karbala? What it entails, and also show them like the visual of today's Karbala and modern day Karbala when it happens in the 10 days. It gives an insight to people of like, okay, there was an event. I may not be aware of it, but now I am. This is the story behind it. But also they realize that a lot of it goes back to spirituality and faith. The Imam stand is like the way I described it in that is like it's beauty in resistance. It's divine in grief, because these are the things that he amplifies. In like when he's standing there on the day of Ashura alone, he is showing, look, I'm alone, but I'm not alone because I'm
my faith is
my faith is in sync with what my God wants, right? Whether these people kill me or not, I know I'm successful in that, right? And this is his show of like the beauty in resistance. And in the same way, the divine in grief. Yes, we mourn his loss, but it's also for us to realize that this is a way of transcending. This is a way of like taking this grief and getting closer to God, to understand what is entailed of us, to get closer to him through the Imam.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Where can anyone...
this is available. Both the books are available on my website, the Perspective Photography website.
I'll put the link in the
I'll put
description.
the link. Yeah, and they can order it. It's also available in Canada and US. We're working on distribution in India, Pakistan, and Africa. So inshallah, in the next few months.
It retails for £45.
Yeah.
If anybody watching at home wants a copy, drop a comment in the comment section.
Yeah.
Type Ashura. We'll pick 10.
Yeah.
Random comments, and I'll send them a book for free. I do want as many people as possible to
I want people to be inspired by this, and it's like I said, also it's a legacy book for us, right? And it also matters, right? Like it's not just it's in this time, it's about hope. Maybe 10 years down the line, someone will pick this book and want to know what was the snapshot. Because keep in mind, we also history tells us we have never had a time as free as this, you can argue, in terms of religious expression in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
So what if it changes tomorrow?
What if it changes
like
tomorrow? Look what we've seen in Syria.
Absolutely. So it could happen, right?
Absolutely.
And if that happens, then at least we have something. And this is why I consider at least we have a documentation if people want to refer to. Tomorrow is going to be there, inshallah.
So Ayaz, hearing about your travels has been amazing. I think Ayaz was one of the original... the OGs when it came to if we could record this conversation, it would be great. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.